Kim and myself both love food. But what we love even more than food is community. And community and food coming together is what this story of WELLfed is all about.
So we'd like you to imagine a community where everyone is well fed. When you have too much stuff, you pass it on to other people. When you have too much food, you gift it to your neighbours. And where communities come together to grow food and harvest food together. And when isolation and loneliness goes and friendships and connections are formed. Over 6 years ago, I volunteered in our local community and met a lovely lady. And the particular week, I'd taken along some muffins. She asked me if I could please show her how to make these muffins. So the following week, I headed up to her house with the equipment and the ingredients to bake together. When I arrived at her house, we went into her very small kitchen and started the process of reading through the recipe, which was my mother's recipe, an easy-to-use recipe. When it was time to add all the ingredients together, she opened her cupboards and I realised that she had very little equipment, no real cooking equipment at all, just plates and some cups. And we started going through the recipe, and when it was time to add the milk into the recipe, I headed for the fridge and opened the fridge, and the only thing in the fridge was milk and antibiotics. And I thought to myself, how could this be? This is a family of 6. There's no cooking equipment, and there's nothing in the fridge. But together, we baked these muffins and the aroma filled the house. The following week, I met her again, and she said that she'd baked the muffins 4 times that week. And in fact, her children had said to her that she'd really stepped it up in the kitchen. The following week, I met her again, and she'd made even more muffins and gifted them to teachers at school, taken them to church, and shared with her friends. In fact, her friends had actually asked her to show them how to make these muffins, which I thought was great. These simple banana chocolate chip muffins were going to be taught to someone else. However, when I asked if she was going to teach others, she said no, because this is something I'm good at and this is my thing. From that experience, Rebecca and I met lots of other mums and dads, and they talked to us about cooking, baking. And we thought to ourselves, if she's not going to start showing others, then we need to do something about this.
And so that's the idea, the beginning of how WELLfed came about. An idea that groups of people could come together and learn and inspire each other to eat well. But before we tell you more about how this came about, I want to share with you a little bit of information about our home city, beautiful Porirua, here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And you will see from this graph that there is quite a range in the deprivation index. If you look to your left, you'll see people that are living, the number of people living in a low deprivation. And if you look to the right, you'll see the number of people living in a high deprivation scenario. Many communities have kind of average, middle of the road, with a few extremes at either end. But if you look at the graph up there of Porirua, you can see up at the higher end of deprivation, we have real need in our community. This is compounded by the fact that over 40% of our population is aged under 25. And that is huge. So you imagine those two things together and the compounding effect it has. And so, Kim and myself, drawing on our volunteering experience within our city, and because of people we'd got to know and opened up their lives to us, started. We just began WELLfed. We got a group together, a team. There was 8 people and us. And then on a volunteer basis, we came together, we drew up recipes that were easy to follow, that didn't require complicated equipment, that could address different literacy and numeracy levels to be able to be followed for children as well. So we could teach our own children as well all the different recipes. Each of the meals that we made was under $10, which is quite an achievement. And we also made baking together so that we could bake and fill lunchboxes and have gifts for friends. And so by starting, we kind of created something big without realising it. And something big often comes with challenges.
There were so many challenges. We realised very early on that one size fits nobody. One of the ladies that started WELLfed with us said, not everyone is poor, not everyone is sad, but we all have stuff going on in our lives, and when we come together as a group, we have fun, we laugh, and we look after each other. Some of the challenges were when we started at Decile 1 schools. The schools didn't actually have fridges, didn't have an oven, there was no cooking equipment. So at that point, we decided that we needed to start a charity, which caused other factors, including more and more time needed for paperwork. We started, our friends started dropping off equipment to us, second-hand cooking equipment, so we could pass that on to some of the families. It actually got to the point where we received so much cooking equipment that we could barely fit our own children in our cars, as you can see from this picture.
And so the power, though, that came with this was what we perhaps hadn't expected, the power of a community coming together with Tokelauan, Māori, Samoan, Cook Islands, European, Pākehā, everyone together and learning all around a goal of feeding our own families well. Many of our teams spoke of how now they would go to a supermarket and know what to go for, what to buy up when it's on special, and to still have food in the cupboards when times were tough. To know how to turn something very simple and humble into a delicious meal to nourish our families. Even more powerful was the next level of confidence and self-belief, so that many people started to believe that they could have further pathways to go on to further education and to employment. And at this stage, we were running weekly classes at Decile 1 school. We realised the demand was so huge, we started at a second school and then a night class. This was all on a volunteer basis. And at this point, we realised the demand was huge. And so we shifted up our game and we decided to invest our time and energies into making it a repeatable model. We worked with a business architect, again, volunteer, to design this so that it can be scalable, so that it can go wherever the need is.
So at this stage, at the beginning of this year, we're just about at 3 years now, we decided to just take it up another level, more hours, more time, but we were achieving so much. So we rented a large building in Pororua. It was the old bowling club. The building hadn't been used for around 5 years and needed a lot of work, cleaning, painting. We had nothing inside. We were quite concerned. We took on a long-term lease, and we also had the bowling greens. But then something amazing happened. The community came together and people started arriving to help us paint the building, to help us clean the building. People dropped off couches, ovens, cooking equipment, toys for the children to play with while their parents were in another room cooking with us. We set up a logistics area, so we started working with food rescue. So rather than food going to landfill, the food would come to us and we would feed and nourish the community. We started a second-hand cooking, another kitchen equipment bank. And when people come and start with WELLfed, we equip them with lots of bits and pieces like measuring cups and measuring spoons and graters so they can go home and carry on practicing. Then we decided we were going to partnership with For the Better Good, and that was amazing. So we set up some community gardens. At the moment, we've got 5 community gardens, just small ones, community beds set up, but our goal is to have 80 of these. We then went on to compost bins. Again, we've got 6 compost bins. They're commercial compost bins on site. Coming back to our whole cycle, which was around a waste to taste. So together, cooking in the kitchen, all of our food waste going into the compost bin, then being put onto the gardens, growing fruit and vegetables, and walking that into our kitchens.
And so at this point, almost exactly, it has been 3 years since the very first WELLfed class. And in that time, we've had the humbling privilege to work alongside 320 adults who have taken those skills, this confidence back into their own homes. And each of those adults generally stays with WELLfed as part of the WELLfed team for 6 to 9, sometimes 12 months. and also can stay on and volunteer alongside and ripple those changes through their own community. That has resulted in 16,500 mouths being fed from meals made at WELLfed, with the power that comes with by feeding your own family. And we've just started this, but 8,000 kilos of food waste that would have ended up in landfill and caused environmental issues has been put into meals and in compost if it's not been able to be used otherwise.
So now, we'd like you to imagine a community where people come together and they cook low-cost, healthy meals, where we learn new things, where there's laughter and connections are formed, and isolation and loneliness reduces, where communities come together and grow gardens and have fun.
But you don't need to imagine this. It's already happening. It's already happening right now in Porirua East, and we believe it can scale much further. We'd like to leave you with a short taste of WELLfed.
Imagine if everybody in the community had a full belly.
Imagine if we could learn how to cook different types of meals.
Imagine coming to the best classes in the world.
Imagine growing your own gardens.
Imagine being confident enough to teach others how to cook.
Imagine if we could feed more families using our gardens and rescued food.
I feel alive again coming to WELLfed.
Imagine being inspired by WELLfed to run my own business. Already happening.
Thank you.
Thank you.